extreme patience. I just want to sincerely appreciate all of you from various media outlets who have spent almost the whole day today to wait for this occasion to happen. I just want to sincerely apologize, but also thank each and every one of you for your patience, especially those of you from Papua New Guinea. This is an extraordinary day for us. We had two extremely important meetings today, separated but joined to the hips, if I could put it this way. And the President of the United States is represented by Secretary of State, Mr. Antony Blinken, for this press. I will also cover the earlier meeting that took place in a quick run-through. Detail of the outcomes of the earlier meeting will be later released to press for each and every one of you. But on this note, let me again thank Secretary Blinken for your patience to remain through right through as we dispatch information that we have to the press that is awaiting us, so that they could likewise bring it to the viewers, to their listeners, and to the readers here and far and wide. This morning, the Pacific Island leaders had the extraordinary pleasure of being with Prime Minister Modi. We completed successfully our third Pacific Island and India leaders meeting and dialogue. President, Prime Minister Modi flew out this afternoon extremely satisfied. The leaders of Pacific were satisfied with outcomes that we wanted to secure for this meeting, especially establishing great rapport between Delhi and the Pacific was established in today's meeting we had earlier with Prime Minister Modi. We engaged in serious conversations, more so pointing to Prime Minister Modi and the Indian government that they must rise as the leader of the nations from the South, and the nations, especially those of us who are still developing, still emerging. He went away knowing that he has a role to play, especially in mobilizing Indian technology, Indian capacities to help, and he himself also did pledge support to the small Pacific Island nations, solar energy solution, for instance, desalination solutions, also his response to climate change upkeep. He also committed to ensure that there's a contribution from the Indian people and government to having a modern heart facility and health facilities in the center of Pacific, in Suva, in Fiji rather, as well as supporting the information system capacities that already India has partnered University of Papua New Guinea in our country. Conversation were warm, fair and frank, and I think we all can be richer in our dialogue we've established with India now going back and for Pacific to maintain that relationship west from us. I want to also indicate to all of you in the press that we had a successful meeting with Secretary of State, Mr. Blinken. Earlier, PNG had a specific bilateral meeting with Secretary Blinken. It was not just on issues of the Defense Cooperation Agreement that was discussed, but far from it, general conversations and discussions on the important relationship we have with the USA. Just like we rank India as the biggest democracy by population size and an emerging strong economy, especially ranked 4th and 5th, or going forward very soon, USA remains the #1 economy. USA remains the leader of the free world. For those of us who believe in democracy, for those of us who believe in a Christian worldview, we share many commonalities with the United States of America. The Secretary of State conveyed the apologies of President Biden that he would not come. But Secretary of State signing of our Defense Cooperation Agreement. That was a culmination of many years and months of engagement with Pentagon, engagement with Washington, engagement with U.S. officials and our team. I just want to stress this point. It wasn't shoved down our throat. It wasn't forced upon us. It was a mutual agreement. A conversation was held, especially on the need for Papua New Guinea to have our defense force assisted, supported, stepped up. Papua New Guineans, you must know, you have domestic security issue as well as closer to home security issues. We cannot forever remain in a parallel system as far as our defense force is concerned. Our defense force needs to be stepped up and supported. We've had similar defense cooperation agreement with Australia, Indonesia, and other nations we enjoy strong long-term partnership with. We have every right also, in the same vein, to engage in a straight partnership with the United States of America, where we have had no problem with. Similar defense force cooperations agreements have been a foundation of our relationship. And today, the Defense Force Cooperation comes at the backdrop of elevating what was originally the umbrella status of force agreement that kept us together. We are now elevating that to a specific relationship exclusive for USA, PNG, military corporations and military engagements and partnership. It is nothing for us to be fearful about. I just want to needless repeat, but for emphasis, because of a lot of misconception and confusion out there in the public. This agreement is subsidiary to treaty. It's below the treaty level. This agreement in no way breaks or encroaches into our country's legislations, be it the fundamental constitution of our country or every other enabling legislations we have. This agreement is congruent to the 1975 Visiting Forces Act. The 1975 Visiting Forces Act. James Marape was still a child in 1975 when the fathers of this nation saw it important to have an act called the Visiting Forces Act to ensure we engage in partnership with nations of similarities, nations where we have common bond, where exchanges can be made possible. And so I just want to inform the educated out there, especially those of you who want to pick a political bone with me, let's not confuse everyone. We are a nation of rule of law. If you feel that this agreement encroaches into one iota of our constitutional law in our land, make a reference to the Supreme Court. I'm sure the court will find that what we have done is within the ambit of the constitution of our country and all subsidiary legislations. It is meant to ensure that our country's domestic as well as sovereign security is secured, beefed up, bumped up, and prepared for any challenges, not just military challenges, but more importantly, challenges of disaster, challenges of social issues, and every other challenge we go through, including securing our country to be a country known to have secured its security issue and prepared for investments that we are trying to attract into our country. My conversation with India is not just purely on politics. My conversation with USA is not purely on politics, but more importantly, deep inside, and Secretary Blinken knows this. Those who worked with us on this one knows this. We want American-based investors to come into our country. We want Indian-based investors to come into our country. We are looking at diversifying our economic base and growing it and making it stronger so that government can in turn look after our citizens. That is foundationally not so today because of the weak security structure we have in our country. Strengthening our defense force, strengthening our police, strengthening our court system, ensuring that our democracy is secured is a key foundational interest of the state to ensure our country is secure. It is in this vein that we are in partnership with the biggest democracy on the face of planet Earth. And I just want to encourage our people, please don't think that something suspicious or funny is behind this month of robust conversation between Port Moresby and Washington, or Wagon in Washington, our own military head office here and our foreign affairs head office here, as well as the Pentagon and Washington offices. Today is a result of many weeks, months, and years of work. And I will be making available to the public as we complete a due process of key documents to be made known to public in the very near future, possibly in days. This agreement will be made public to everyone, for all of us to understand. The United States of America is always transparent on matters that is of importance to the public. They too, I would believe, and I would like to speak for Secretary Blinken, but they too will make known to the public, their own country. They have a duty to report back to their country the agreement that we've signed. And for matters of transparency, both the people and citizens of Papua New Guinea, people and citizens of USA would know exactly what we've signed. I just want to conclude by saying what we signed does not encroach or affect, rather, Papua New Guinea's own relationship we have with other nations we trade with, or we have relationship with, be it military or government-to-government relations. Period. It does not affect whether in China, or Australia, or United Kingdom, or Japan, or India, or any other nation for that matter. This agreement does not in one way, shape, and form stop Papua New Guinea from continuing on doing business with those we do business with. So I just want to inform everyone, have a bit of understanding that your government is in the business of securing your future and your economic future as we work upon these matters. Other matters were discussed with Secretary Blinken on behalf of President Biden. Pacific Islanders waste continued issue on the climate change, our energy insecurity, our greater resource security in the region. You would have been informed earlier that we did sign a subsidiary agreement called the SIP-Wide Agreement that secures PNG's maritime borders and our resources found in our seas. That sort of conversation was also held in the Pacific Island Leaders Meeting, the concern of theft of our resources and the security of our seas. All conversation made, Secretary Blinken was very generous with his time and ears. He sat through, listened to all conversations, made a reply. But a substantial part of Pacific Island and USA engagements were put to a work in progress mode, and we will arrive in Washington in September of this year, hopefully for a substantial progress, where the United States is making a greater commitment to respond to some of the key global challenges we face in the region, including the climate change issues and the other insecurity issues that we're facing. On this note, Secretary Blinken, I have not stolen your thunder. There's enough space for you. I just allow you to sort of introduce. We can go through some of the discussions that we held, and you could weather, and we'll take a few questions.
Prime Minister, thank you so much, and I fully endorse everything you said. And you can speak for this because you do it so eloquently, and I can only fully agree with everything that you said. But thank you for the incredibly warm reception, and thank you for an incredibly productive day, both on a bilateral basis in the United States and Papua New Guinea, but also with all of our regional partners, discussing and making progress on issues that are critical to our shared future. There is an old Hawaiian saying that translates loosely to united to move forward. And I think that's the spirit in which we all came together today as Pacific nations. Our partnership is crucial to how we deliver for our people, how we meet their needs and aspirations, and advance our common vision for the region, one that is free and open, connected, prosperous, secure, and resilient. Or, as your 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent puts it, a resilient Pacific region of peace, harmony, security, social inclusion, and prosperity that ensures all Pacific peoples can lead free, healthy, standing up the new Pacific Resilience Facility. This Pacific-owned, Pacific-led solution will drive investment into climate adaptation and resilience in frontline communities. Together, we're boosting our vital security relationship to ensure that the Blue Pacific remains a place of peace and prosperity. Prime Minister and I just signed, as he mentioned, 2 agreements which will boost cooperation between Papua New Guinea Defense Forces and the U.S. Coast Guard, help build up the Defense Forces' capacity, and help combat illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. Together, we're driving progress to expand trade, investment, and business initiatives that can lift up all communities. In Papua New Guinea specifically, we're working with Congress to provide over $45 million in a new program on sustainable and inclusive development, public health, and energy security. And later this year, the Department of Commerce will lead a first-ever U.S. business delegation to Pacific Island countries to explore opportunities in energy and transportation, in healthcare, tourism, and telecommunications. Together, we're modernizing and enhancing the Compacts of Free Association. These are the bedrock of U.S. engagement in the Pacific. We just signed our agreement with Palau today in this room, and I'm grateful to President Whips for his partnership. Tomorrow, we'll sign our agreement with the Federated States of Micronesia, and I look forward to finishing negotiations with the Republic of the Marshall Islands soon to ensure that this arrangement reflects the realities and the challenges of our time. As part of these agreements, the United States will commit $7.1 billion to freely associated states over the next 20 years. Together, we're also strengthening the ties between our peoples. We are very excited to announce the return of the Peace Corps to the Pacific Islands, and that we're launching new educational exchanges to share skills and expertise and forge enduring connections that will benefit our communities. So, we have a lot to work on, a lot to accomplish together. And that's why we're expanding our diplomatic presence in the region, delivering on our commitments last year. We've opened 2 new embassies, one in the Solomon Islands, the other just 2 weeks ago in Tonga. And we're working to do the same in Vanuatu and Kiribati by the end of this year. We've named our first ever envoy for the Pacific Islands Forum, Ambassador Frankie Reed, who will continue to engage throughout the region to strengthen our partnerships. We'll continue to strive to meet the Pacific where it is, with Pacific leaders and through the Pacific Islands Forum. We'll encourage other partners to do the same, including through Partners in the Blue Pacific, to support the 2050 strategy for a Blue Pacific continent. And in that regard, we very much welcome India's engagement with countries in the region. That, too, is a very positive development for the future that we all want. So, Prime Minister, to you, thank you. Thank you for this partnership at a critical time for the region that we share. And thank you for the work that we're doing every day to build it, to make it stronger, to deliver on our shared vision. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Secretary Blinken. Any questions? Let's just take 2 or 3 questions.
We'll first go to Garrett Kenneth from the Post-Courier.
Prime Minister, just mentioned the 51st, the line credit program with India and Papua New Guinea, was it be extended or was it extended?
The Prime Minister took note of this one, and he's taken it back to his country. For us, as a country, it's important we also diversify our source of support. India has opened up those facilities. We've asked him to go back and maintain the facility, especially others that we already in line to procure a source. So he said he'll take back to his officials. You know, we don't run other forms of government. We run democratic form of government. He's got his own system to go back to look into. He did give support. He said he will look into it from his officials.
We'll next go to Jeff Thorne from AFP.
Hi, thank you for taking the time to speak to us. My question is for you, Secretary. Given the inroads that China has made in the Pacific, in places such as the Solomon Islands, how important was it for do with Palau to counter Beijing's rising influence in the region? And how satisfied are you with the outcome?
Well, I'd say a few things. First, the agreements that we've reached, the work that we're doing, is not about any other country. It's about our relationship with the Pacific Islands and the shared vision that we have for this region. And as you heard the Prime Minister say, while we signed the Defense Cooperation Agreement today, the shipwrighting agreement, these are very important in helping to strengthen Papua New Guinea's capacity. We're working across the board on issues of direct concern to people in Papua New Guinea and throughout the region, whether it's climate, whether it's energy, whether it's investment, whether it's building up healthcare systems. But this is grounded in, I think, what's fair to say is a shared vision that we have for a free and open Indo-Pacific. And we talk about that a lot, and I just want to be clear about what we mean by that when we're talking about a free and open Indo-Pacific. We mean a region where countries are free to choose their own path and their own partners, where problems will be dealt with openly, transparently, goals will be reached in a transparent way, applied fairly, and goods, ideas, and people can flow freely and lawfully across the land, the seas, the skies, and in cyberspace. That's the vision that we have, as well as making sure that citizens in our countries have the opportunity to reach their full potential, providing the support necessary to do that. This vision doesn't exclude anyone. We welcome contributions by other countries, including the DRC to regional development, so long as they adhere to the highest standards, including in areas like transparency and the rule of law. If all of us are going to be engaged in the region as partners, well, if there's going to be a race, let it be a race to the top. That's what we're all about, and we want to simply see anyone who's engage in a way that advances the shared vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific. But as I said, the focus that we have is on building and strengthening these partnerships on their own terms, not with regard to any other country.
Take a final question from Ms. Swanson of ABC.
I'm happy just to talk loudly if you can hear me. Secretary Blinken, I appreciate what you're saying there, that this isn't about any other countries, but ultimately China's made very serious inroads with respect to the defence and security arrangement here in the Pacific. Now that the Defence Cooperation Agreement has been signed, under what kind of time frame would you like to see US military or US assets placed in PNG, and what bases are you looking at of importance to the United States?
What we're focused on is what our partners here are working and trying to achieve in strengthening their capacity. As you heard the Prime Minister say, there's a focus on humanitarian assistance, disaster relief. That's the main import of what we're doing. But the main point is that, as you heard the Prime Minister say, we've had this basic arrangement going back to 1975. So this is simply updating and modernizing what has been a long-standing agreement between our countries, just to make sure that we can work together as effectively as possible. And as I said, in the first instance, we want to make sure that we're being responsive to some of the challenges that the PNG faces. There are other challenges that I mentioned where these agreements will be very helpful. For example, the issue of illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing. This is something that is having a devastating impact on livelihoods in the Pacific Islands, as well as the ecosystem that is so vital to nourishing these economies. So this can, I think the work that we're doing with PNG can be of real assistance there. You've heard the Prime Minister talk about other concerns with regard, for example, to smuggling, where again, these agreements will help. But that's the immediate focus of what we're going to do. But it's all on the basis of simply bringing up to date and modernizing agreements that have been there for a long, long time. And I would emphasize, again, something the Prime Minister said. These its sovereignty. These are agreements that we reach together, not agreements that anyone is imposing on anyone else, and they take away no freedom of action from the PNG. And as the Prime Minister said, we'll be making these publicly available, as we always do, as we complete the process of finalizing the agreements in our respective countries.
Secretary, if I could just add one or two more lines. In the questions on China, let me inform everyone. Chinese government and people have no interest whatsoever with what we do in other nations. We have a healthy relationship with the Chinese government. They are important and big trading partner. When we were moving into finalizing this agreement, we did not need to tell everyone else what we were doing, but they've given assurance to us in our conversations that we have every right to engage with USA as much as we can with them. I just want to inform Papua New Guineans in the first instance that the media were trying to play out on this issue of China versus USA. The Secretary of State correctly has stated has nothing to do with the bigger issues, the headline issues that keep on going off every now and then. Papua New Guinea invited USA to move beyond just an ordinary agreement to a specific development focus agreement. In my view, that strengthens our defense force, and they will come in at the invitation of our defense force and not at their own will. That's something that must be clear. The agreement is specific. Upon our invitation, they come in. There are other subsequent operational work that needs to be done that involves other agreements and other processes. This is just a framework agreement that now opens up us to have this element of specific relationship with USA like we've never had before. And I want to assure Papua New Guineans, nothing to do with China when this was signed. It is more to do with our own internal security issue to ensure that our military is now responsive to the challenges of 21st century living in this part of planet Earth.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I'd just say one last thing, if I could. The ocean that we share is called the Pacific, and our ambition is for it to remain exactly that, an ocean of peace. That's what we're looking to do together.
All right, thank you very much. I'll be talking to NAFM tomorrow, not NAFM, sorry, Callaghan, FM 100, my talk back so that it's running. For those who want to tune in, you can tune in, ask more questions then tomorrow, 10 o'clock at FM 100. Thank you very much. God bless.